On page 63, problem number 22, part B, we're looking at violet flowers versus white flowers. And violet flowers are dominant to white flowers. In this example, they tell us that you get 705 violet flowers and 224 white flowers. And we're trying to determine, are these results close enough to the expected ratio? So, first of all, you have to figure out what the expected ratio is. In order to do that, you have to consider the fact that this was supposed to be the F2 results. So the P generation is pure, and that would be big W crossed with little w. The F1 generation would then be all big W, little w. So then if you cross those, the F2 generation should be 3/4 violet and 1/4 white. And you can plug those in your table for your expected ratio. 3/4 the dominant trait and 1/4 the recessive trait. The observed traits, of course, you were given. So we had 705 violet flowers and 224 white flowers. To figure out your expected, you take your expected ratio and multiply it by the total number of offspring or flowers. So to get your total, you take all of your violet flowers and all of your white flowers and add them together. That's 929 flowers. When you take those together, and multiply it by the expected ratio of 3/4, you get 696.75. And that's your expected amount of dominant or violet flowers. We take 1/4 times that total, 929, and get our expected amount is 932.25. To find the deviation, you take the observed minus the expected, and that gets you 8.25 in this column with the violet flowers. And again, you do your observed minus your expected here for white flowers, and that gives you a negative 8.25. For your deviation, you simply deviation squared, you just square this number. To get your chi-square value, you take your deviation squared and divide it by your expected. So you would take 68.0625 and divide it by 696.75. And for the white column, the recessive column, you take 668.0625 and divide it by the expected, which was 232.25, and you get 0.293. These chi-square values must be added together to get our total chi-square value, which is 0.39. Now, in order to move further, you also need to figure out your degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom are determined by the number of phenotypes or categories minus 1. So we had violet flowers and white flowers. That's 2 phenotypes minus 1 equals 1. So we go up to our table and we look across the degrees of freedom column of 1. We're looking for a number that is closest to 0.39. When we look across, the closest one we settle is right here on 0.46. And that gives us a p-value of around 0.5. Now this lands in this darker blue area where it fails to reject the null hypothesis. So you would write that down, fails to reject the null hypothesis. What that means is it's okay. Yes, this deviation can be explained by chance. Any differences that we see between this 705 and this 224 are in the observed and the expected numbers right here can be attributed to chance.